Good morning, everybody. Melinda Freed here. And this morning, we're going to make matza brei. Now, I know that Rabbi Aaron made matza brei a couple of days ago. He made a savory matza brei with 4 ingredients. He had onion in his, and it looked absolutely delicious. I'm going to make the other kind of matza brei, which is a sweeter matza brei that's more like French toast with cinnamon and sugar and some other ingredients. This matza brei is called matza brei with pear, ricotta, and dried cherry. I've never made this recipe with pear because I've just never had a pear that was ripe when I needed it for this recipe, and I haven't missed the pear, but I've loved everything else. It has 9 ingredients. Now, some of you have never made matza brei. I didn't grow up in a matza brei house. I never even heard of it until I was an adult. People were talking about it, and I had no idea what it was. And there's a million ways to make it. But the main idea is that you're going to break up matza, and you're going to soak it in either an egg mixture or a water mixture. And so I've done that. Now, I'm only making this recipe for 1. It actually makes enough for 4. So I have taken pieces of matza. I have them soaking in water for about 5 minutes so that they get soft enough to mix in with the egg mixture and cook. And I just put this in a few moments ago, so while we're preparing everything else, I'm going to let it soak just a little bit more. We're going to start with 1 egg, and I mentioned in one of my other videos the other day that the kosher process for using eggs is to inspect them and make sure there's not any blood in them. And normally I would do that in a little glass measuring cup, but since I only have 1 egg and I'm in a glass bowl, I have put my egg in there. In addition to that, I'm going to add my ricotta, and keep in mind again that I'm only making this for me today, so it's not the quantity that you would see if I was making the whole thing. It calls for a little bit of salt and some sugar. And again, I will post this recipe as I have the other recipes. I will post this recipe below the video. It comes from a lady who I believe is based in Bethesda, Maryland, and she calls herself Sassy Radish. She's a kosher cook, or a Jewish cook, I believe, at least. You need a little bit of oil in here, a little bit of cinnamon. So I have cinnamon, sugar, egg, oil, and a little bit of heavy cream. I'm going to mix all of that together, get it nice and smooth before I add the tart cherries to all of this. So just whisk it around. You want to get the lumps out of the ricotta. You could also use farmer's cheese for those of you. That's the Jewish dry curd kind. Alright, I've got that smooth. And now I'm going to add some tart dried cherries. This is just a delicious, delicious dish. And I'm so glad that I found this recipe a few years ago. She had a website, and I can't seem to find that website anymore. But this particular recipe was actually written up in Saveur magazine. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to drain the water out of the matza. A few pieces are trying to get away here. All right. I'm going to add that to my egg mixture. And I'll mix that around so it's all together. Now it's time to cook. If you were making this recipe in the real quantity, which makes for 4, you would need a pretty large skillet. And you might even want to do it in 2. Because I'm only making it for 1, I'm making it in this pan. And I have heated some vegetable oil. In this case, I'm using olive oil. It's still Passover, so I wouldn't be using any soy oil. And as soon as the oil in my pan is hot, and I preheated it a little bit for you, I'm going to pour this mixture in, and then I will move the camera a little bit so that you can see exactly what's going on. As a matter of fact, we'll move that now, and that way you should be able to see most of what's happening here. So I'm going to pour this into my prepared pan. The oil should be hot enough that it's just starting to sizzle a little bit. Now, the trick to doing this the right way is that you let it sit for about 4 to 5 minutes and you don't touch it. You just leave it in the pan and let it cook. And it will start to get nice and golden brown on the bottom. And then when you see that, you'll flip it over. Most of the time, especially if you're making it in the full quantity, you're going to find that it breaks off into pieces, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. But sometimes when I'm just making it for myself, I can get it to be one large pancake. So I'm going to let this cook for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to get back to you and show you what it looks like when we flip it. And I hope that you're going to be as excited to make this recipe as I'm going to be to eat it this morning. See you in a few. Okay, I'm back, and if you hear any noise in the background, I have the camera propped against my French press pot, and it's in the process of making my coffee to go with this delicious breakfast. But hopefully you can hear me well. If you look underneath here, you'll see, let me tip this a little bit for you, you'll see that it's starting to get dark underneath. And so what I'm going to do, and this one isn't going to come out all in one piece today, but I don't want it to burn, is I'm going to flip it over. Now it will not take 5 minutes on the other side. Let me show you what we have here. Let's grab some pot holders. So you can see that it's nice and brown. I've got my plate ready that I'm going to turn it out on. And I'm having clementine with it today. We eat with our eyes. So I just peeled a clementine and I put it around the rim of the plate, because why shouldn't my breakfast be special and nice too? So what will happen when your matzo brie is all done, and again, it won't take 5 minutes on the second side, it will probably take about 2, is that you'll turn it out onto your plate. Let's see how it's coming. Well, it's just about done. Good, you'll get a chance to see this. Is you'll turn it out on your plate. I like to sprinkle a little sugar on top of it, or a little cinnamon sugar, and then I'm ready to dig in. I have enjoyed doing these Passover videos with you, and who knows, there may even be another one before the holiday ends. But thank you so much for your attention. And the Hebrew for bon appetit is b'tei avon. So I hope that if you make this, that you will enjoy it. And let's turn it out on the plate and see what we have here, because it really, really looks delicious. And it's got those tart dried cherries in it, which I like. Doesn't mean that you couldn't use some other kind of dried fruit with it. And I'm going to blast this with just a little bit of sugar. It could be powdered sugar, although during Passover, make sure that it doesn't have cornstarch in it, which regular powdered sugar does. Passover powdered sugar does not. I'm just using granulated sugar. And there you go. So enjoy and continue to enjoy the Passover holiday. Wash your hands and be well.